Welcome to Fresh Talk News Channel. Today, we delve into a critical update shaking the political and voting landscape in America. It's a 5-alarm fire for American voters and for election officials. Just 2 weeks after Donald Trump issued a sweeping executive order targeting voting rights, the House of Representatives is poised to pass the SAVE Act. Voting rights advocates are calling it potentially the worst voter suppression bill ever seriously considered by Congress. If enacted, it could disenfranchise millions of voters and drastically restrict how Americans register to vote. If the SAVE Act were enacted, this would be the first federal voter suppression bill in recent memory, possibly ever, says Eliza Swearenbecker, senior counsel at the Brennan Center for Justice. It would impose an unprecedented burden on tens of millions of Americans and block countless citizens from participating in our democracy. It's a 5-alarm fire for American voters and for election officials. Though it claims to prevent non-citizens from voting in federal elections, something that's already illegal and extremely rare, the SAVE Act would require documentary proof of citizenship, like a passport or birth certificate, to register. According to studies by the Brennan Center and other voting rights groups, about 9% of U.S. citizens, roughly 21 million people, don't have easy access to citizenship documents. 60% of them voted in the 2020 election. Nearly 4 million people don't have these documents at all due to loss, theft, or destruction, but the bill's reach goes even further. According to Pew Research, 69 million women who changed their last name after marriage don't have a birth certificate matching their current legal name, which could severely complicate their ability to register. Ironically, Republican-leaning women are among the most likely to take their spouse's last name. Greta Bedekovics of the Center for American Progress calls this a marriage penalty that ignores the impact of the 19th Amendment. The bill also requires in-person submission of citizenship documents at election offices, ending online, mail-in, and drive-based registrations. These methods accounted for 1 in 3 registrations between 2018 and 2022. The rule applies not only to new voters but to anyone updating their registration. Currently, less than 6% of voters register at election offices, yet around 80 million Americans register or re-register each cycle. The SAVE Act will take us back to a pre-internet era of registration, says Bedekovics. Americans hate going to the DMV. Imagine making a trip to the election office every time you need to make a change. And it's not just urban voters who'd be affected. In some of the country's largest counties, especially in the West, a CAP study found rural voters might need to drive an average of 260 miles round trip just to register, costing up to $75 in gas and crossing state lines. That's a huge burden, Bedekovics adds. These are often rural, conservative voters, people you wouldn't expect to be impacted. Beyond that, the SAVE Act would criminalize election officials who mistakenly register non-citizens, even though such incidents are almost non-existent. Officials would also be required to help process all the new documentation and conduct frequent voter roll purges based on questionable citizenship data. This could lead to lawful voters being removed just before elections, violating the 90-day quiet period under the National Voter Registration Act, and perhaps most concerning, it would go into effect immediately, with no federal funding. It's a completely unfunded mandate that would place an enormous burden on local election officials, Swearenbecker says. It's truly an election administration nightmare. The bill combines 2 key themes of the MAGA agenda: anti-immigrant fearmongering and voter fraud hysteria. Republicans say it's necessary to stop non-citizens from voting, but they've provided no proof. We all know, intuitively, that a lot of illegals are voting in federal elections, claimed House Speaker Mike Johnson. But it's not easily provable. We don't have that number. In fact, the numbers show otherwise. Georgia's 2023 audit found only 20 suspected non-citizens on the rolls out of 8.2 million registered voters. North Carolina found only 9 among 7.7 million voters. A 2016 Brennan Center review of 42 jurisdictions, home to 23 million people, found just 30 suspected cases of non-citizens voting. That's 0.0001% of total votes. The claim that illegal voting is swaying elections is sensational, writes Walter Olson of the Cato Institute. Those who make such claims should prove them. But they haven't. It's just one baseless assertion after another. And we've seen the consequences before. When Kansas passed a proof of citizenship law in 2011, it blocked 1 in 7 new registrants, over 31,000 people, from voting. Nearly half were under age 30. Despite claims that non-citizen voting was rampant, only 7 convictions were found over 13 years. A federal judge struck the law down in 2018, calling the evidence presented by its architect, Chris Kobach, nothing more than an icicle. Even Kobach's successor admitted, it didn't work out so well. New Hampshire's recent voter ID law also caused chaos. One 70-year-old woman had to visit the polls 3 times with multiple documents and was still denied. Her crime? Her birth certificate had a different last name than the one she currently uses. "I kept my last name after my divorce for my children's sake," she said. Having to prove that feels deeply sexist and outdated. The SAVE Act initially died after passing the House last summer, blocked by President Biden and Senate Democrats. But now, with Trump back in the spotlight, Republicans are reviving it. Trump's latest executive order incorporates parts of the bill, and Republicans are pushing for another vote. Democrats hope to stop it again in the Senate, where 60 votes are needed to pass. For the past 60 years, Congress has worked to expand voting rights, from the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to the Help America Vote Act of 2002. If Congress enacts the SAVE Act, warned Swearenbecker, it would mark a dangerous departure from that legacy, and from the mission of protecting Americans' freedom to vote. Thanks for watching Fresh Talk News Channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more news and updates.